Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the May 10th budget session of the City Council. Today we have Director Sanchez, Community Recreation Events. Do you want to start off with some introductions of your staff or jump into budget? What do you want to do?
Yes, sir. Mr. Chair, City Council members, thank you for having me today. My name is Jason Sanchez. I'm the Director of the Community Rec and Events Department. Before we get started, I do want to have a moment to just say thank you to a few folks. First, I want to thank the mayor for meeting with each of the departments, considering our budget requests and for approving all that he could. We know that this is not an easy job, so we do appreciate the consideration. I'd also like to thank Robin Lockman and her team for creating probably the best budget book I've ever seen. The banners, the color, the font, graphics, the eye for detail, the ease of reading. This is, again, by far the best document I've seen. And so kudos to them. They've pretty much eliminated the need to ask any questions. So. Yeah. With me today, I also have Sam Payne, the Deputy Director of our department. This here is probably one of the hardest working people I've ever met, and it is a privilege and a pleasure to be working alongside him. And so just want to publicly thank Sam for all he does for our department. Sam and I also asked each of our division managers to be here today, just in case there is a question that Sam and I can't answer. And so I'm going to call their names, and if you would just maybe stand up and wave your hand just so that everyone knows who we are. But with us today, we have our aquatics manager, Kyle Myers, our botanic garden manager, Scott Aker, our cemetery manager, Nathan Chapman, our forestry manager, Mark Ellison, our golf manager, Ron Kennard, our ice and events manager, Jeff Gelati, our park manager, Brandon Peterson, our program and facilities manager, Brittany Hooper, our recreation manager, Andrew Coe, our weed and pest manager, Stephen Trowbridge. Not with us today because we have a show. We're missing Courtney, Kalina, and Chris, who collectively manage our civic center. Oh, there we are, Chris. Sorry, I didn't see you sneak in. Chris Muggenberg, she's our tech director and a reason why we have such success at the Civic Center. And Sam and I team up and we work with Tony Martinez to manage our clean and safe division. And so a round of applause for these folks for all that they do as well. So for our department, the budgeting process starts in September or October. Each of the division managers meets with their respective team, and they create a strategic plan for the year. That strategic plan covers any changes they're going to make in fees, how they can launch new programs, launching never tried before marketing campaigns, increase pest control or data collection. And that leads us to our budget requests. So those strategic plans are what leads us to what our asks are. I'm very proud of our staff. Despite many obstacles, they work very diligently every day for the community. They have a can-do spirit and perseverance. We are not a typical Monday to Friday, 8 to 5 department. We are a 7-day-a-week department, nights, weekends, holidays. And they do it with a smile. They know their why. We know our why for this community. And so they do a great job, and I appreciate every one of you for all that you do. Our department is also cognizant and works diligently to reuse and reduce water usage. And we have quite a few upcoming water or landscape conversions around the community to help reduce water. So we'll go ahead and get into the budget, where you will start on page 144. I will pause at the end of each division for questions. I'll try to just capture, because we have a lot to cover in this hour. So I'm going to try to cover just the major changes outside of wage increases. Is that okay with you, Mr. Chair? Okay, so we'll start on page 144, and that is the Community Rec and Events Administration. Our major change or significant change in this division is that we are asking for an office manager. Prior to the RIFs in 2020, we had an office manager. We lost that position, and since that time, we have delegated the work out to multiple people in different divisions, as well as absorbed what we can in our office. If we have the position, we would have that person doing all of our requisitions, manage vouchers, travel requests, submit items for forms for finance committee, public service, council agenda, help with payroll entering, routine office duties. Right now, Sam and I, if we're at a meeting, our office is locked. And so it would improve our customer service and overall improve the efficiencies of the department. When you have someone that's dedicated to working on those tasks specifically, they become experts in those and it reduces opportunity for error, which also reduces workload on other departments. And so that is our major ask out of that division. Are there any questions? Okay, next page 146 is our forestry division. There were some questions when the mayor did his introduction the other day in regard to the Arboretum. So I just wanted to start there by answering the question. We have 2 full-time employees that work 1 day a week at the Arboretum. We have 1 intern that will work 40 hours a week for 12 weeks. That intern is funded by a state forestry grant and by a private donor. We also had last year 77 hours of volunteer hours worked out there, so we estimate we would have about the same going forward. So Councilman Seagrave, to your question, those are the answers to the work we're doing at the Arboretum. To go along with that, I do, Mark supplied some information to me and it was that if we partner with the state and that MOU is successful, there are approximately 10,000 trees that the state would be responsible for. And our service would be approximately 1,283 trees and shrubs total with both. For the Girl Scout area, so the Camp Carefree, the current Arboretum, and the areas that would remain under our privy. In our budget, we asked for $65,000 to continue with our tree removal program, or 60,000, I'm sorry, and 25,000 to assist low income citizens with emergency tree removal in the right of way. Those are our significant changes in the forestry division.
Councilman Roybal.
Just a couple of quick questions. How big land wise is the
Arboretum?
Arboretum?
The Arboretum consists of total 2,200 acres approximately.
The second is that 25,000, we had that in last year, didn't we? For tree removal for,
Mr. Chair, last year we used 20,000 of ARPA funds for that.
okay, and did we use any of it?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Councilman White.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. Jason, I have a couple questions as well. The one-time expense for the tree removal for low-income residents, how is that going to be rolled out and when is that going to be rolled out? I completely support it. I'm just curious as to how that's going to be administered.
Mr. Chair, I'm gonna ask Mark to come up. We have a plan in place, but if Mark, just so we don't misspeak on this one, if you don't mind answering this one.
Just gonna kneel down here. We're at the same height. So, bad intro. Yeah, so when we get this 25,000 for this program, we'll probably roll it out July 1st. The way we ran the program this past year is when we send a notice to a property owner about a hazardous street tree. If they're within a low income neighborhood, we included an application for this program. And so the way it worked is if they filled out the application and they were eligible, they met our requirements, then the city forestry division would contract that tree removal or tree pruning, whatever it might be. We would pay for it, and then the homeowner would then be responsible for 50% of the cost of that tree removal. And then we would allow them to pay the city back over 12 months.
Okay. And then another question, Mark.
Sure.
Regarding the third-party contractual amounts for tree removal. I know that that's with Big Paws primarily, amongst others. How many trees? We've heard a lot. We've gotten emails from constituents on the tree removal at parks. I understand the need for it. But it's pretty, it stinks that we have to take down so many trees in our parks. I get it, squirrel damage, wind, shelf life, all of that. How many trees do you expect to remove in the coming year?
Just on city properties?
Yes.
Oh, it's a tough one. You know, over the past 2 years, we've done about 200 large tree removals. And that's gone up considerably. When I first started, we averaged around 40 to 50. And that's really because we've got an aging population of trees in several of our parks, Holiday, Lakeview, Lions, JC. Unfortunately, you know, we kind of overplanted cottonwood and willow and spruce, trees that are short-lived. You know, they're not bad trees by any means, but we didn't diversify our tree canopy very, very well initially. You know, we're doing a better job now, but so that's kind of why we're in this situation, and it's going to continue. You know, in Holiday, for instance, there's just over 200 trees that are in that elderly state where they're likely going to have to be removed in the next 5 to 10 years. So.
Okay.
Whoops,
Thank you.
Councilman Royball?
Just a quick follow-up on my question on the 25,000. Do the trees have to, you said street, they have to be street overhanging, so they have to be in right of way or?
Yeah, they have to be in the right of way or adjacent to the right of way. Threatening the right of way is kind of the way it's worded in our ordinance.
So we're not going into backyards and taking the
Right.
trees down?
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
Thank you.
Unless it's, you know, hanging over an alley, you know, that could be a backyard situation.
okay, thank you.
Power lines and all that.
Yeah. And you know, on city property, we've got about 15,000 trees. So, you know, in the bigger scheme of things, you know, the 200 in Holidays, not, you know, that significant, but, you know, the visual impact in that singular park is pretty dramatic for sure, especially recently.
Are you including the cemeteries and the golf courses and
Yeah.
all that's in there? Okay.
Yeah.
Any other ones, follow-ups?
Thank you, Mark. You bet. Thank you.
Okay,
Okay, we will move on to our program and facilities division on page 148. And our big ask, there are significant changes that we are asking to hire a event technician out of this facility. And what that is we currently pay a contractor to come and clean a few of our buildings, the Pioneer Park Center, the Youth Activity Center at Romero Park. We pay approximately $3,000 a month for the service. The service isn't always what we expected. It isn't always at our level of expectations. We spend a considerable amount of time calling the supervisor of the team, trying to identify what wasn't taken care of, what wasn't addressed, trying to get them to come back to clean what was supposed to have been cleaned. They don't work weekends. And so what we want to do is apply the funds that we are currently using for a contractor, but to hire a full-time employee that we would supervise, that would be able to help with event setup at those facilities, to make sure that the facility is well cared for while we have events in those facilities, to assist us at the Beast with some of our cleaning. But to also meet the standard that we have. The Kiwanis Community House is a great example of if we maintain it well, it lasts for a long time and still looks brand new. The community house is almost 22 years old, but it looks like it did day one. That's our goal. And so we're asking for the support to hire a full-time employee by using some of the funds we were using for a contractor to help secure the cost. Any questions on program and facilities? Okay, we'll turn to page 150, which is our aquatics division. The significant change here is a $15,430 increase. We are asking for the support to hire an additional maintenance tech at the aquatic center. We currently have 3 full-time employees. but we are open 7 days a week, 14, 15 hours a day. What we want to have is a full-time employee present each day of the week. And right now we're shuffling schedules and having folks work. It's a different rotation, but it's not sustainable without an additional full-time person. Full-time employees have they get trained to be lifeguards, to address customer concerns, to address maintenance needs when they arise. And right now, we are leaning heavily on the 3 full-time that we have, but a lot of part-time employees to make crucial decisions throughout the day. What we're proposing is to reduce or to combine the wage of 2 of our part-time people to help fill in the gap for a full-time position. This would bring us to 4 full-time employees at the Aquatic Center. And again, I will stand for question.
Councilman White?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. Jason, on this particular section, I have a question regarding something that the mayor went over on his overview a couple days ago. The one-time expenses to replace the boiler at the Aquatic Center indicates that it's 30 years old and in dire need of replacement. When the six penny funding mechanism was passed some years back after the redesign, and, you know, all the locker rooms were refurbished, that sort of thing. Wasn't the boiler replaced at that time?
Mr. Chair, through you, Councilman White, it was not. The funds that were used at that time were to add the additional space onto the Aquatic Center and to put a new boiler for that side. The main pool side still has I don't want to say the original boiler, but it's at least 30 years old. We asked a couple of contractors what they estimate the cost to be to replace it, and they said with engineering and the equipment and installation, we'd probably be looking around 300,000. Right now, we've been patching the one we have together, but there are multiple times where we've had to shut the facility down because the water temperatures drop below 80 degrees. And so that's why we have that request there.
Thank you.
Councilman Johnson?
I'm just wondering, have you guys had more success with hiring lifeguards? I know several years we always talked about the difficulty of keeping the staff or the establishment open because of staffing issues. Have you guys seen that kind of level out after the pandemic, that we're getting staff back into that building to keep our operation open?
Mr. Chair, through you, Councilman Johnson, after the pandemic, the city council, the mayor made a concerted effort to afford us the opportunity to raise wages for our part-time and seasonal employees. Since that time, we've had a lot greater success throughout the whole department, hiring and attracting seasonals and part-time employees.
Councilman Roybal?
I didn't see anything in the one-time projects about Johnson Pool. Is Johnson, open this year again?
Mr. Chair, through you, Councilman Roybal, that's a great question. So Johnson Pool is now 70 years old. This last winter, the foundation, the shell has numerous cracks in it. So we've been out getting quotes from contractors to see what we can do to get the pool open for this summer, or at least for a couple years. It's a Band-Aid approach. So we have one quote to put a liner in to line the existing shell. That's around $80,000 is the quote that we received. We also received quotes from a concrete contractor, and we're waiting for a couple more to just do some concrete replacement and try to get it to seal up. The low quote at the moment is approximately $18,000, but there's no guarantee that if they do that work, that the shell's still not going to leak. So we're trying to get that cost estimate and try to figure out what is the best step forward. Do we invest $20,000 and try to Band-Aid this for a couple more years? Do we invest $80,000 and try to guarantee that we're not going to leak water and still a Band-Aid for the next few years? Right now, we have out to bid and we just selected a contractor. You'll see the item on the next council agenda for design of a new Johnson Pool. So we're going to go through that process with the design. There is an add alternate for the engineering firm to add a covered shell. So there's to do a full design and then another alternate to say if we enclosed it, what would that cost be? Those are due back by the end of October. And we asked for that to be done this year so that if it became a 6 penny option, if that's an option to fund it, that we would be prepared with up-to-date numbers for the next six penny ballot 2025.
If you don't mind, I would like to be kept in the loop with that.
Yep.
Cause we do have some ward contingency money and things like that, that we may be able to spend that direction, but I would like to see Johnson pull over.
Thank you.
Did you have a question, Councilman?
Just one clarification. 70 years old,
Yes, sir.
1954.
Councilman
That's older
Seagrave?
than- That's older than me. Hard to believe.
I say 2058.
Mr. Chair, assuming that we find a way to rebuild Johnson, would you do it on site or would you consider Romero Park for it? And I'm just thinking of putting it all together.
Mr. Chair, through you, we did give consideration to Romero Park. The problem we have with Romero is the groundwater. Water table is extremely high. When we built the restrooms out there a few years back, we hit water at about 4 feet. And so I don't know that it would really be possible. We also have a robust pumping system at the Yak. We like Lincoln Park because it's been there for 70 years. I think it's a great addition to the south side. And so that's where we've focused our project. Okay, we'll move on to page 152, which is recreation. Recreation, there really wasn't many significant changes to this budget outside of staff wages. We do have a computer software maintenance agreement for Adobe Acrobat of $1,000, but otherwise the budget pretty much stayed as it was. Any questions on recreation?
Councilman Johnson?
Okay, going into what you just said, because it looks like is there not a flat fee? Because it looks like on your programs and facilities, do we have to pay a $920 to renew Adobe Acrobat Pro for programs? And then also for $1,000 under recreation? So is that just split amongst departments, or how does an Adobe rollout work? That it would seem like we would just have a one-time fee to, or does it have to be per console, unit, tower, whatever?
Mr. Chair, through you, we separate it per division. And because we also have different funding mechanisms for different divisions, but I generally keep everything, the Adobe, most of our computer software programs tied specifically to that division. I would say on the recreation, under the professional service budget, we did add $10,000 this year, and that's a significant change because we are hosting the State Park and Rec Conference in October. So that may be why that number is a little bit higher.
Okay.
Okay, next one is recreation buildings on page 154. And there was just a slight increase in that budget just due to gas and electricity.
Okay.
Under our golf division,
Sorry, Jason.
Yep.
Okay.
Would this buildings, would that include the new gymnastics and the Beast? Does that go in here?
Mr. Chair, through you, they do not. The Beast we have under our 014, and we'll do the same with the gymnastics. And so what we're trying to do there is the revenue we collect from there covers the expenses that we have for those facilities. And what I'm trying to do is build a maintenance fund automatically with the revenue we generate so that we, again, have perpetual maintenance of these facilities. Okay, so we're on page 156, and this is our golf division. We had some salary changes, and then basically it's a 3% increase against all of the GLs. The cost for parts for our fleet have gone up, fuel, our professional service for our software, we do testing of our soils, our tissue tests, our water tests, so basically a 3%. One thing I do need to note, though, is that not in 2024, but in 2025, we are going to introduce a rate increase for the golf courses. The last time we had a rate increase was in 2022. And so in those 3 years, the cost of Electricity, fertilizer, parts, wages, everything has gone up. So for 2025, there will be an increase. I will email each of you a copy of the proposed fee increases as well as a market study. We compared where we are against all the other golf courses in the surrounding area. So I will email you each that separately. And as a good point, just to note, even with our increase, we are still at the lower end of the cost.
Councilman Johnson.
Okay, just because anybody that didn't kind of follow along over the last year might see the division manager has a change of $30,258. I remember that number from when we did the longevity COLA, what do you call it? Building or bringing them up to what industry standard was. So because of, seeing that such a large increase on that specific person, can you I kind of covered it, but you can probably
Sure.
speak to it a little better.
So as you're aware, the city did do a study, market study for all of our positions. When we received that information, the goal was to bring all of the city employees up to the market minimum. From there, we created a matrix that would say, because it caused compression when you automatically bring everyone to the new market minimum. So we created a matrix and we applied that throughout the city. So your years of service and your position line. So if there's a top end, there's an entry level and a top end, right? Between that bottom and top, we figure there's 35 years that most people would work for the city or for an entity. So you divide the difference between the top and the bottom by 35, and that tells you what they should be getting as an annual increase. Ron has been the division manager of our golf course for 26 years, and he was barely over the market minimum of his range. So by implementing the matrix, it brought Ron where he should be within the value of the position. We are lucky to have such a talented employee. Ron is one of the industry's best. He is one of the hardest working people on our team, and I fully stand behind the wage we're paying him.
Councilman Rubel.
Just a couple of quick questions. As far as membership, has it been pretty static? Have we gained members, lost members to the golf club?
Mr. Chair, through you, our memberships have increased a little bit. I'll provide all those numbers in my email with the rate increase, but we did pick up some play when the base golf course closed. There's still only X amount of rounds that could be played in a day. And so Mother Nature still plays a pretty big role. If you recall, last year we had the fourth wettest spring in history. So if the weather is cooperative, we could see the numbers go up. If the weather is not cooperative, obviously they'll stay down. So, but I will provide a total number of memberships.
Thank you.
And by the way, I took care of some of those tree branches on number 6 at airport yesterday.
Thank you, sir.
Oh.
Okay, so we'll move on now to page 158. This is in our Parks Division. Really, the significant increase to that is again back to staff wages, and with the number of employees that we have, that's what captured that. We did have an increase to our software maintenance. It's $8,500, and that's for a program that helps with our playground inspections. It's a better way to manage them, to store them versus the old paper copies and the many file cabinets we had previously. Okay, and that also, so this year we also bought, it's a robot per se, that goes and paints our fields. It's called a turf tank. And so it connects to GPS and it will go, and we put a program in, we lay out how the fields are going, how they should be laid out and the distances apart, and it goes and paints the fields for us. So I will tell you that historically, we would spend approximately 2 weeks with 5 employees laying out all the soccer fields at North Park. So we'd stretch 300-foot tape measures, every direction, put pins, then you go and you paint everything. It'd take us about 2 weeks. We did it in almost 2 days this year with our robot. It uses 30% less product and it just plugs in and goes. So part of the professional services for the software for the turf tank as well. The lines are also 90-degree. There is no more jagged lines.
Councilman Seagrave.
Can we stripe parking lots with it?
Next question.
If it's auto work, can it come by my house?
All right.
Uh,
Go ahead.
to you, Chair. The seasonal employees.
Yes, sir.
There was a time where we were having trouble attracting seasonal employees for like mowing and things like that. How's that looking now?
Mr. Chair, through you, again, when the council and the mayor gave us the budget increases to increase wages, we pretty much solved that problem. I think last year, and with the help of HR too, I have to give them a compliment as well. The hiring process used to take many weeks and be very cumbersome. They've really expedited the process, and that makes a big difference in our ability to attract and retain seasonal employees as well.
Thank you.
Councilman Seagrave?
Real quick, are we not paying the seasonal twice a month now? Did that help you as well, or was that a factor?
Mr. Chair, through you. Yes, we are, and yes, it did. It is a big difference for some of these seasonals, especially the folks that are getting out of high school and college. It was not uncommon if they started, let's say, the third week of June, they wouldn't receive a paycheck for 5 or 6 weeks till August 1st to get that check. And so with the mayor's support and accounting, again, you got Callie Medley, she puts in a lot of work. But by offering that, these folks are more willing to take jobs with the city.
Mr. President, Dr. Rennie.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to know, ask Jason, like on the health insurance line item, that went down by 20,000. Why did we have a gain there? Under parks on page 159.
Mr. Chair, through you. So there is a slight increase with in our insurance this year. I think it was 2.5%. But the other part is if we lose an employee, we have to budget that the next employee we hire will take the full insurance benefit. They may not, but we do budget in case they do. Does that make sense?
Okay, so we had budgeted for the full-time employee and we had a gap in there where we didn't have somebody hired. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Kozak used to save us money on that all the time. So, all right, thank you.
No problem. Okay, next page is 160 with our cemetery division. And we really don't have many significant changes in this division, other than the payroll.
Councilman White?
Mr. Chair, through you, Jason, with the installation of the new irrigation system that was passed via Last Six Penny, how's that working out? I know that it was updated from the 1950s. You couldn't even get parts for it anymore. So,
Mr. Chair, through you, thank you for the question, Councilman White. So we are actually in our substantially complete phase of the project. It's installed. They've turned on the water. We're adjusting heads, just we're working on punch list items. But that was a very successful project, and thank you to Nathan and his team for their daily oversight. But we were on time and under budget. They also made some improvements. We had to trench through some of our maintenance roads. So we had a contractor come in and we were able to repave those roads with that funding mechanism. So it's just about complete. We have, I think we advertised for substantial completion and we'll be wrapping it all up. It's hard to cut ribbon for that project because everything's underground, but it was a necessity and a successful project.
good to hear.
Councilman Johnson?
Okay, two questions, and I ask these every year. How many slots do we have now available? I know that, I think we've already ran out of our family plot area and we were down to singles, or how much are we, or how many plots do we have left?
Mr. Chair, through you. So you are correct. We don't have many family plots available in Lakeview Cemetery. We do have about 100. I think Sam's gonna pull up the email. If not, I'll email it to you. I do have a breakdown. Nathan supplied it to us just this week of the available gray spaces in each of the cemeteries. Primarily in Lakeview, we're down to single spaces and they're mostly along the fence lines.
Okay, and then how much do we still collect? Because you talked a couple of years ago about perpetuity payments that, because of, the next generation and the following generation passing away as well on some of our older. How are we standing on our perpetuity payments?
Mr. Chair, through you. So we do have a perpetual care fund. The hard part is that a large number of the spaces were sold at a low rate, the perpetual care was extremely low when they sold them. And so we don't have a way to go back and collect additional perpetual care on those spaces. Where we do generate revenue is on opening and closing, so multiple burials can take place per space. So it could be 2 full burials or a full burial and 2 cremations or 3 cremations. So we do have opening and closing. Our tent fees for setting up, that's one of our revenue generators. And then we also do locates for monuments. So those are our primary revenue generators at the cemetery.
I guess as a follow-up, I haven't walked through there. Do we are we starting to look into vaults? Or do we have any vaults in our current, I know I've been to a couple of cemeteries that have like the long walls that can fit, hundreds of people per specific wall. They, kind of look like post office boxes for people to put their urns and stuff in. Is that something that do we have any space like in the Potter's Field on I believe it's the north side of, is it Olivet that's on the north side? Cause Lakeview South and then isn't Olivet that's on the north? And then don't we have the Potter's Field that's like right by the goalposts and things that we could, if we needed to, are we able to create a vault back there for additional space?
So Mr. Chair, through you to Councilman Johnson, great questions. A lot of information right there. So Potter's Field is actually on the south side of Lakeview. There are a lot of unmarked and unidentified burials in those spaces, so we don't conduct burials or add anything into that area. If we do, and we have found that before, if we encounter human remains, we just back out of the space. And that's if the space said that it was available. But because there were so many unmarked graves late 1800s, early 1900s, that's what we encounter. Olivet Cemetery is on the north side of Pershing, the northeast side. That's a private cemetery. We do the maintenance for that, and then we build a church for our maintenance and for the services we provide. The west side, on the north side of Pershing, is Bethel Cemetery. So we have Oddfellows, the Jewish cemetery, and Bethel. Most of the spaces have been sold in Bethel. There is a small area by Oddfellows that we can install an additional columbarium, but we do have a columbarium by that pond, and it is designated for exactly what you said. Urns for cremation, and we could stack multiple in one spot.
Councilman Ribble.
Who owns the property where the goalposts are?
Mr. Chair, through you, that'd be the Church of St. Mary's.
Okay, so that's all private property also.
Yes,
They
sir.
could open that for interment if they desired.
And they have actually, they recently installed a columbarium up there near the old pre-circle. And so they're trying to do the same thing, get as many burials as possible in one location.
Thank you.
Okay, the next one is our Botanic Gardens. Again, there's not many significant changes. We had a budget increase for professional development of $5,000, and really that's because we have a lot of newer employees, and so we need to send them to some training conferences and classes just to get them up to where the rest of the team is. But not many significant changes in this budget. I'll stand for any questions.
Councilman Seagrave.
Mr. Chair, it's more of a comment than a question. I want to thank your board of directors. I received a bunch of emails and I very much appreciate their support. They're very enthusiastic about the Arboretum and where we might be headed there. And I know they're disappointed that we're not putting that position in right now. But I do believe it makes sense to wait. As the mayor indicated, I believe it was Tuesday, we're going to have to show some type of financial support if the state steps in. And to me, it makes sense to wait 6 to 12 months, and that could be part of our financial support. So I very much appreciate their emails. I appreciate their enthusiasm. To me, this is all about timing. And I have no doubts that this will happen. It just seems like it makes a little more sense to wait. So if you'll share that, I would appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Councilman Roybal.
Just a comment on the Botanic Gardens. That's another one of the buildings that the maintenance on it has been done every day. And that building that was what, 25 years old?
Botanic Gardens?
Yeah.
We just opened the Grand Conservatory 2017, 2018.
But I mean, the thing still looks like it's brand new. So that's why I like your suggestion on the other buildings.
Yes, sir. And kudos to Scott and his team. They also reinvigorate the interior plants. They change things, so it's not been there, done that type of facility. They make changes frequently just so that people have a desire to keep coming back.
And apparently you can get your pictures taken in the tulips.
Yes, sir. Director Fountain said he would give you a $750 fine for vandalism. Okay, next.
Jason,
Sorry. So kind of going into this one, going back to the public forum that you guys had, the evening, to kind of get the community's input on the future direction of the Botanic Gardens. When can we expect that to roll out to us, like as far as, if you were going to do a study or, I know that was part of the public engagement process. What are your guys' timelines on that?
Mr. Chair, through you, we're just about to conclude our master plan for the Botanic Gardens. So
Okay.
Scott, what do you think? Couple. Yeah, we're just about ready to release the final draft of the master plan.
Okay, and because of yours and I's conversations that we've had in regards to low water landscaping, I know you and I have talked about the potentially next one. I see it looks like it's a contractor that's working on the Robert Burns Triangle. So is Botanics kind of overseeing that to make sure that with the low water landscaping, or are you guys just relying on the contractor alone for that triangle?
Mr. Chair, through you to Councilman Johnson. So we work, Vetter, who is our planner. She actually is the person that did the landscape design. And then collectively, all of our teams are managing and monitoring that project. We're also working on a water conversion, a landscape conversion in Lions Park through all the islands near the Kiwanis Community House. And we included in our Botanic Master Plan a conversion of the Cary Avenue Islands between Frontier Park and Lions Park. Our goal is to transition out of non-functional turf and try to conserve as much water as we can.
Okay, so I guess looking at that after the master plan comes, and I know that was one of the components that came out of it was the Cary Avenue Islands between the Frontier Park and Lions Park. So is that something that we'll probably see in the fiscal year 26 budget that we're looking for, that we should plan maybe Q3 to start, or at least start looking at the ready to get the contractors and everything ready, like they're doing with the Burns one in I guess it's the spring. So would we be looking maybe at Cary Avenue for the budgetary stuff to maybe happen starting around Q2 of 2027 to estimate for the Cary Avenue Islands?
Mr. Chair, through you, when we get the master plan, they have identified benchmarks or priorities, phases per se. And so we'll take a look at the overall, because something may be funded by a different group. Maybe a group wants to fund phase one or a part of the Botanic. Perhaps someone wants to do that landscape or fund that for the Cary Avenue. If not, we'll see what the cost estimate is to do the conversion, and we could have a conversation and try to find any funding mechanism to do it. You guys, you know us, we try to get things done as quick as possible. So I don't want to wait till 2027. I would like to get the master plan, see what the design is, see what it would cost to do the work, and find a funding mechanism.
Well, but I mean, it would be low hanging fruit, 6 penny if we were to go that. So I guess on that one, another thing that gets brought up to me a lot is do we have a programming out at the Botanical Gardens? Because more people have expressed Habitat Hero Gardens, like in different parts of the town. I know that they have that one that's out there at the Botanical Gardens, and I know that the master gardeners and the individuals from the Audubon Society and things are kind of like spearheading that. Do we have any kind of programming that if they were to go out to the Botanical Gardens, they could kind of learn on how to do Habitat Hero Gardens in their own subdivisions or neighborhoods?
Mr. Chair, through you to Councilman Johnson, this is actually a pretty hot topic at the moment. I had a call yesterday from a group that started a group on social media about doing community gardens. And Scott and his team were ready to apply for a grant to take and build community gardens throughout the community. The downside is that we just don't have the staff to maintain them at the moment. So we pushed pause until we know that we have adequate staffing, because the last thing we want to do is go build a community garden in all 3 wards and then not being able to maintain it. So we want to do one at a time. make sure that we have all of our ducks lined up, that it's gonna work, and that we have enough community volunteers to help with the weed control, fabric, watering, all the fun things that would need to take place. But it is something that we're interested in. It is something that we'd be willing to help. I have a guy, like I said, we just had a conversation yesterday. He's gonna get with his group of folks, the master gardeners and a few others. I believe they're gonna have a meeting at the library and then bring their thought processes to us. We'll vet it out, see what we can do this next year.
Councilman White.
Mr. Chair, through you, Jason, to Councilman Johnson's point on that. I talked to your predecessor about something similar to this pre-COVID. And it was in relation to a program that former Mayor Erickson talked to me about when he was in office. It was called a Water Bug Program. And that's where citizens kind of went out and did the maintenance for parks on the various triangle parks in the community. And I was told at the time that we really couldn't do that because of liability concerns. Has that changed?
Mr. Chair, through you. No, I don't believe that's changed, but if we're talking lawnmowers and string trimmers versus gardening or hand pulling weeds, I think we could do the latter. And so again, this is where we need to sit collectively with that group, see what they could provide and what we could provide. The reason we didn't move forward right now is that we don't have the staff available to manage additional gardens.
Great.
Mr.
Just
Mr.
one
President,
final, just one final question. Then I'll yield to Dr. Rennie. But there's a lot of folks in our various neighborhoods that would be more than willing to step up and sign a liability waiver and do those maintenance tasks for the staff so it wouldn't be a burden on the rec staff.
I think it's a conversation we should continue having.
Dr. Rennie.
Yeah, Mr. President, going back to the water bug program, that lasted into Dave Romero's tenure as Parks and Rec Director. And I remember that was it was people in the neighborhood dragging their hoses like across the street just to water those triangles so that the city wouldn't have to do it. I'm not sure that they were ever mowed by citizens. So that's just, I remember that happening back in the late 80s when I first got on council.
That is correct.
Councilman Roybal.
So,
You're lit up over there.
yeah, when Councilman Seagrave and I, when we showed up in here, it was kind of just us, and we were talking about the Burns Triangle. Could you maybe run through the collaborations or your partners on that?
Sure. Mr. Chair, through you. So we partnered with many people, many groups to do that landscape conversion. The BOPU, Leadership Cheyenne, the Board of Realtors, Arts Cheyenne, and then our department. So recently Arts Cheyenne went out and did some work on the bronze statue that's out there. So it's not as oxidized as it was a week ago. The Board of Realtors purchased one of the benches for us. The BOPU secured a $10,000 grant. Leadership Cheyenne came through with some funding. I don't know the number off the top of my head, but it's been a pretty amazing partnership with the community to get this done. And I think people are really interested in these landscape conversions. They look good and they save a lot of water. Okay, so the next one is clean and safe. The most significant change out of clean and safe is in our professional service line. And that is to hire that security company that we've been employing for the last month and a half. They make multiple patrols through the Spiker Garage through the evening. Their documentation and record keeping is very, very thorough. According to our team, our clean and safe guys, they have seen a decrease in vandalism and activity in the building. And so that's the major, the significant change for clean and safe. I will stand for any questions.
Have you
Councilman Roybal.
located a building for clean and safe?
Mr. Chair, through you, we have not. We are still in pursuit of an area, and if anyone has any ideas, we're all ears. But the clean and safe team does need an area to store all of their equipment. I think everyone has seen the significant changes in the appearance of the downtown area. But we have a lot of equipment in parking lots or behind in the parking structures that are accessible to transients and mischief. And so we are actively looking for a location.
Councilman Seagrave.
Might suggest the parking lot out here to the north. Maybe you could put a building in there, but
Sure.
I don't have any questions really on the budget. I just want to take a moment to thank you and all of your staff. The events that you deal with, the number of facilities, the parking garages, the bathrooms. I mean, I don't know if it's clean and safe for just your department, but right now, I'm not sure everybody realizes that we're remodeling the downtown bathrooms at the parking structure there. That's through Director Sanchez's department. I think downtown looks as good as it's looked in decades, to me. I love and I know you weren't directly involved, but we finally got the lights done on 17th Street. The parking garages seem, the efforts to paint the top floor seems to, and again, what I see, and I'm not there every day, but it seems to have eliminated a lot of the graffiti. I think your staff just does a fabulous job, and that's true for all of your divisions, but it's very visible to me when I see it downtown, and I see them in their little Kubotas, and I like the fact that they're visible. The community sees that. So kudos to all your departments, but this one gets a lot of visibility and a lot of attention, and I think they do a great job. Thank you.
Councilman Roybal.
I just have a quick question. I was driving down, I think it's Pioneer, and on the corner of 17th and where that transitional housing is,
Mhm.
they had bikes locked to everything, trees, cars, small animals. Is there any way we can get another rack down there, or a couple racks or something, multiple rack or something?
Sure. We could, Mr. Chair, through you, we'll go visit with the transitional service folks and see if what they estimate their need would be, and we could do that. But to Councilman Seagrave, I appreciate you taking the time to recognize the clean and safe team and all of our teams. They do a great job. I agree with you. These guys are there at 5 o'clock in the morning. They clean some of the worst things that you can imagine, but they get it. They totally understand what their service is and what they do for the downtown area. And so thank you for recognizing them. They do a great job.
Just to follow up, and just to build on what he said, the only reason I noticed that is that everything else downtown is clean. I mean, the garbages, they're not overflowing. The sidewalks look better. There's not even a tumbleweed downtown. So I appreciate what you guys do. I really
Thank
do.
you. Any other questions on clean and safe? Okay, so we're gonna move quickly to page 186. Which is our weed and pest fund. Basically, we're a pass-through for this fund. The revenue that is applied to weed and pest is through a mill. Stephen and his team, though, again, another highlight, he has moved our weed and pest division to heights we haven't seen before. The mapping, you see all the islands through town on all the right of ways. Stephen and his team are coordinating that with the contractor. Vicky pays the bill. But he manages what chemical we're gonna use, the results, if it's a pre-emergent or if it's a contact. The mosquito control, he's working hand in hand with the county. We're actually partnering with the county. We've never really had this type of a partnership, but we're partnering on a facility. I can't speak highly enough of what Stephen and his team have done in transforming our weed and pest department. There's not any real significant changes in their budget. They did reduce the amount of need we have for contractors by hiring 2 full-time employees with Stephen. They're all licensed. They all are very knowledgeable in what they do. They are subject matter experts. If you want to learn anything about mosquitoes, sit down with Stephen for 5 minutes. You're going to walk out a lot smarter. But there are no real significant changes in their budget.
Councilman Roybal.
Do we still have the little white Jeep and the Hummer?
Mr. Chair, through you, we did not. We traded off the 40-year-old equipment and got a few newer pieces for them. But yeah, we had those for quite a while. Okay, if there are no other questions there, because we're running out of time, I'm gonna bounce over to page 257, which is our Civic Center Fund. And really, we've decreased the ask in this budget, just based on what we learned, how we fine tune the shows. I do want to just make sure everybody understands one thing about the Civic Center, because it's a question I often get is, are we in the red? Are we making money? And the answer is no, we are still in the red. We're not black. But 25%, a quarter of the year, that staff is who puts on our Fridays on the Plaza. That's the team that puts on, sets the stage, does all the audio. We learned from Visit Cheyenne that the economic impact from Fridays on the Plaza is $1.1 million. And so while we're not generating revenue in the Civic Center at that time, well, they're still providing a service to the community. And so the numbers can look a little bit jaded when you see profit loss statements. But the other part is we have great weather in Cheyenne in the summer, and a lot of people are tired of the wind and want to be outside now. And so we intentionally put on the Fridays and go a little bit darker in the Civic Center. And I just want to make sure that we know that every year, if there's any overage funds or anything that we're going to revert from our CRE budget as a whole, I try to revert back to cover any of the losses at the Civic Center. But that's why.
Okay, Councilman White.
Mr. Chair, through you, just a quick comment on that. The Civic Center staff is amazing. I see them interacting with numerous folks in the crowd during Fridays on the Plaza. They're always friendly, always nice. Big Rick takes kids kind of up close and to the side sometimes so they can get a better view of the stage.
That's me.
I've even seen Big Rick have a child on his shoulders so they can view the act. And then last year, just a quick point to show how nimble your staff is. One of the final acts of the summer, Jelon Crossland, whom I'm a big fan of, Mother Nature did not cooperate that night. So the staff was able to do a quick turnaround to the Civic Center, get that all set up so that the show, while it couldn't take place on the Plaza because of all the rain, was able to take place at the Civic Center. So I don't know how you guys pulled that off. I equate it to a professional sports maintenance staff changing over from a Nuggets game to an Avalanche game in less than 24 hours. I don't know how they do that, but your staff was able to pull something similar, and everyone was very appreciative of that. So
Thank you. Okay, we'll move to page 261, which is the Ice and Events Fund.
Mr. President, I had some questions on the Civic Center, Dr. Rennie.
Dr. Rennie, go ahead.
Yeah, I noticed that if I'm reading it right, under expenditures, we cut advertising by 2/3. Why take such a significant cut there?
Mr. Chair, through you, what we're doing, Dr. Rennie, is we're billing it back to the show instead of, so it's under a different line.
Okay, all right. I just,
But we're
you know, it
building it.
doesn't, yeah, it just didn't make sense to me to cut advertising by that much.
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
that makes sense. Thank you. And then rental incomes are down 20,000, or projected rental incomes are down 20,000. Are we not booked as heavily or pacing ourselves? What's going on there?
Mr. Chair, through you again, we're just taking a conservative approach to it. It's hard to know or forecast what the rentals will be, what we would prefer. So rentals are safe, right? It's guaranteed income, but it's a small amount. The greater reward is if we present our own, then we have the opportunity for a greater gain, but we also have the risk of a greater loss. So what we are focused on and what we're seeing is that there are some type of shows that have continuously sold out, comedy shows for one, some of our symphony and Broadway. So we're trying to program more of those and reduce maybe some of the rentals so we could generate more revenue.
Okay, and last, Mr. President, your projected ticket sales are down 50,000. So I didn't know if or we're trying to be more realistic with our projections or again, anticipating less of a turnout.
Mr. Chair, through you, I'm just trying to budget to be more realistic and to maybe project our revenues down a little bit and then pleasantly surprise you.
Okay, all right, Mr. President, thank you.
I had one quick question on the grants. So we had 1.3 million from the U.S. Department of Treasury in 2022. Are those grants, we showing those somewhere else in the budget? Or are we just not getting any in, under your civic center fund,
Right.
page 256?
So, Mr. Chair, through you, we did receive some shuttered venue grants, and that was during the pandemic when all of the venues pretty much went dark. We qualified for a shuttered venue grant. And so that reimbursed us some of the revenue that we lost during the pandemic, as well as a grant for the purchase of the sound system. So that was about $500,000. So those were those one-time funds from the pandemic that we are no longer eligible to get.
Okay. Any other questions?
Okay, we are at once. I'm gonna go really quick. Our Ice and Event Center, again, not any major changes to this budget. Jeff and his team do an excellent job of bringing in events year round to try to generate revenue. At the moment, I think we're at a 97% cost recovery out of that facility. And it just shows that he's done his due diligence. He tries, and I hear it sometimes people say, that, we need to have year round ice. If we do, there's an expense to that. And so can we capture or cover that expense? But with the amount of months that we're running ice right now and the number of rentals and events that we're hosting, the number of birthday parties, he's at about a 97% cost recovery, which is not rarely heard of with municipal buildings or recreation centers. And so kudos to Jeff and his team for sticking to their business plan and trying to get as many community events in that building as possible.
Quick question
Councilman Seagrave?
through you. Do you think that will increase a little bit when you get the gymnastics open? I'm just thinking of a synergy between the two facilities. If you got tag-alongs for gymnastics, will the kids go over to the ice center and vice versa?
Mr. Chair, through you, that is absolutely what our goal is and what our hope is. If we host large gymnastic events, that those folks will go over, play, on the bumper cars, the laser tag, the miniature golf, to go do little ice skating or roller skating, whatever it is that we have at that time. So that is 100% what our hope is. Time will tell. So we didn't get through all the funds. We have an 014 fund, which is our recreation fund. And basically what that is any of our programs that are separated in an 014. If they're not successful, we do away with the program. So we have one for like our aquatics. We have youth tackle football, softball, player fees, Super Day, the Botanic Gardens. They're all responsible. Their program has to support itself. The child care program, our rec camp and latchkey. And so all of those accounts are doing well. The business models are working. It will add the beast into that. And hopefully next year I'm able to sit here and tell you that we are doing good business and we're generating revenue to cover the expenses.
Councilman Roybal?
Just a quick, maybe you can give out a synopsis of the letter that you sent us on the Beast, where there was some social media about kicking out all the teams that had been there forever, that type of thing.
Sure, Mr. Chair, through you. So that's a tough one. So everyone's aware that we have historically we were reliant on the school district to use their gyms to run our programs. Over the last few years, it's become more and more difficult for us to get gym space to run our programs. Sometimes we'll get, that day we'll catch notice that we're not going to be able to use the gym. Well, that would displace all of our participants. Sometimes it's a couple days in advance, but often we would be removed and have to cancel our program for the night. In November of 2023, we were approached and asked if we were interested in purchasing the Beast. That made sense for many reasons. One, we would be in control of our own destiny. We'd be able to get all of our participants, youth and adults, into one facility. So what we did once we purchased is we worked with all of the user groups. We tried to honor all the contracts that were already in place. We tried to not displace anyone. We never shut down. So even the folks that were playing pickleball, while we transitioned in, we just said, hey, can you be patient with us while we do this transition? We want to keep you here, but there's going to be some disruption. And they were good with it. Most people were pretty good with it. And so what was happening is the Beast had been primarily rented out to some competitive groups of volleyball and basketball, and they were using the facility 2 or 3 nights a week, the entire facility. Well, when we introduced our programs in, we did a lot of scenarios. If we used all 4 courts, we used 2 courts. If we only use 2 courts, then we're still reliant on the school district to use some of their gyms. And our goal was to get out of the schools. Let the other groups then be able to utilize the school gyms because they wouldn't need as many as we are. We were using 10 or 12 schools. So if we're out, those should be available. When we settled on, after we did all of our scenarios, we landed on that our programs would occupy 3 courts a night. We would still leave one available for people to rent. So it could be rented for basketball, volleyball, whatever. We still wanted to incorporate some drop-in times because that has become proven to be very successful. People are coming on the weekends to do drop-in for basketball, volleyball, cornhole, pickleball, any of those things. We're using the morning time when people are generally at school for pickleball, so it's a good use of the facility. We're getting 50, 60 people every day playing pickleball in the facility, so we're able to generate some revenue. We're also still trying to do some rentals. Again, I've got to generate some revenue to cover the expenses. By doing all of those things, though, we did indeed reduce the opportunity to groups to rent 3 or 4 courts 2 or 3 nights a week. There is still an opportunity to rent a court, but it's not the whole facility like it was. If we did that, then we would still be out at the schools going through the same problems, which didn't really solve what we were trying to accomplish. What I would conclude is this: we didn't add gym space to the community, we just repurposed what was there. I feel, and based on some of the surveys that we have for our current Parks and Rec master plan, is that the city is still in need of additional gym space. The Beast, the way it's laid out, lends itself well for these competitive groups because they could bring 100 kids if they have 100 kids in their program and run 3 or 4 courts at a time. We just don't have that right now with our programs. And it's not just youth. We are also trying to cater to some of our adults. So we have adult programs in there as well. They're part of the citizenry in the community as well. So that's where we're at. There are still opportunities. I don't know any other way we could have described it or a better way we could have approached it. I think our team did an outstanding job listening to all of the groups and doing the best they could with what we have, knowing that we needed to utilize the space for all of our programs.
Councilman Seagrave?
I know we're over our time, but if you had your utopia, what would you add as far as gym space? What are you looking at? Another Beast type facility, same size, bigger, smaller, where?
Mr. Chair, through you, I think we would have to build a little larger than what we currently have. The 4 courts could easily be occupied every day of the week. And so if we were able to build a facility larger than that, I think the community needs are there.
Jason, how many buildings does CRE have?
Mr. Chair, I'll have to email you that one. We do the community house, the youth activity center, the Pioneer Park Center, Ice and Event Center, the Frontier building right now for gymnastics, the Beast, the Plaza, the Civic Center. So about 10 buildings that we actively utilize, and then multiple athletic complexes. We have 27 softball, baseball fields, North Park, Cahill Park for soccer, lacrosse. I think we have a little over 1,000 acres and a little over $200 million in assets.
And it's gonna be a busy summer.
We're ready.
Yeah.
Before we conclude, I do want to thank all of you too for your time and your consideration. I know, again, it's not an easy choice. There are more requests than there are funds, but thank you for giving us the time to at least explain our thought processes. And again, I would like to thank our team. These folks work extremely hard, and Sam and I are blessed to have such an amazing group of people to work with. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah. Councilman Laybourne, you've been pretty quiet over there.
Yeah, well, going over all these different departments and all that is accomplished, it's really something the city can be proud of. What a great staff you've got gathered here, and keeping them here. I think that's important. And I certainly believe you need that department manager in your office so that you can manage that better. So certainly, as we've discussed here, that never-ending desire for more and the growing city is a big challenge. You're certainly meeting it, and I certainly appreciate everybody involved, because it's come a long way, and coming out of COVID and our economic conditions. It's shows real dedication to detail. And I think that certainly I believe that what you're doing downtown is of particular interest to me, and I want us to keep moving because obviously it makes a big difference. Thank you.
Thank you all for being here. Appreciate the work you are all doing. And with that, we are adjourned.